Do we want to sell your house? Absolutely.
Real estate coaches, there's life coaches.
I'm going to be busy. I'm going to work all the time.
Multi-million-dollar.
When you first start, it's not. It's not flexible.
It's all about the hustle.
What am I doing wrong?
I need this commission check so bad.
Well, don't get commission, bruh. Don't get commission.
Person-to-person connection kind of person.
I needed all of those.
What do I want out of this?
You're solo.
You're alone.
You're alone.
Oh, the market's hot. The market's hot. You know.
Sometimes it's not.
It's not. Depression's a very real thing.
It's okay if you're not 100% all the time. It's not always going to be perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going crazy.
Like, life gets crazy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally. The schedule is flexible.
The schedule is flexible.
Yeah.
The Red Chair Podcast. Real truth behind real people in real estate.
Well, hello, and thank you for joining us here again at the Red Chair Podcast. My name is April, and I am your host for the day. And we are so glad you have chosen to join us today. If this is your first time joining the Red Chair Podcast, welcome to you. Be sure to click the subscribe button and ring that bell for notifications so you can see future podcasts with us as well. And we are also now available on Spotify. So all of the recordings that we have put out are now available to you to listen to in your car, on your treadmill, wherever you are. We want you to tune in with us. And so be sure to subscribe at Spotify as well and join us for the conversation. So we are bringing some excellent content for you today in regards to real estate, mindset, mental health. And with me in the red chair today, we've got Nat Thorp. Thanks for joining us, Nat.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Happy that you're here with us. So you're juggling contracts, clients, market shifts, and all the while trying to keep your cool. Real estate isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle that can take a real toll on your mental health. So today we're opening a much needed conversation about mental health in the real estate industry, from burnout and boundaries to empathy and emotional resilience. Whether you're an agent, a broker, or a client, this episode is, I think, really going to hit home. So, Nat, why don't you start by telling us a bit about your background, what brought you into real estate, what made you become a realtor?
Yeah. So, my background, I'm born and raised in Victoria, one of the few true island people that are left. And I worked food and beverage service industry for the better part of 20 years. And I've now been in real estate for closing in on 6. All with Royal LePage. And really the kind of main deciding factor for me was just had a few friends that kind of in different businesses, whether that's construction, development, that kind of stuff, that had been, they would come in and chat and we'd get talking, and they just really kind of set the tone of like, this is something that you could do. They thought it would be something I would be successful at, and just kind of, decided at one point I need to stop pouring drinks and do something different. So went for it.
That makes sense too. I mean, you're kind of in that culture anyway, where you're front facing, you're with, customers a lot. And so I'm sure a lot of those skills that you learned in the food and service industry really did transcend to real estate too.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of it's just your like soft people skills.
Yeah.
And just being able to, create that quick relationship, being able to kind of read people and scenarios quickly. And that's all just stuff you kind of learn over a lot of years for myself, but honestly, you learn it pretty quickly when you're kind of working in that environment, in that business. So,
yeah. And I think you've been in real estate long enough now that you're like, really a lot of this is mindset. It's a lot of, checking in on your mental health. So I think this is a really important conversation today, and kudos to you for, wanting to talk about it, because it can be hard. I was joking and said, should we have a Kleenex box here? Like, are we going to do some crying here together today?
Let's see what we open up. Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
But I think we'll definitely, be talking about some things that are really going to resonate with the audience. So I'm happy for that. So we're going to start by sort of talking about like the hidden cost of the hustle culture. We hear so often, where I think there's, real estate coaches, there's life coaches, the coaching industry is multi-million-dollar, and it's all about the hustle. It's all about working hard and, but then also having a work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I think there's really just a lot of mixed messages out there that really play on our emotional well-being. And so I guess I'll start by asking, one of the questions around this whole concept of hustle culture. What are some of the red flags that you see, that indicate an agent might be sort of reaching their breaking point?
Yeah.
And have you experienced some of those yourself if you want to share, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone realistically in most businesses, especially a commission-based business where, whether that's, your own business and you're, an entrepreneur and you're going through the motions of trying to get things set up, build your client base, get deals done, pack it, all that sort of, and it translates the same to real estate. But for me, I think it's a mix in the mental health sense of, I think there's a bit of a missed narrative in the it's all a balance. It's a great career because it's really flexible. When you first start, it's not. It's not flexible. And so to really set those boundaries out of the gate is extremely difficult if you want to build a really successful business in the long run. So you have to kind of just, there's a podcaster I listen to pretty regularly, and he's always saying, choose reality. When you first start, choose the reality you are going to be doing this borderline 24/7.
Right.
It just, and once you kind of sink into that, I think it helps to alleviate the potential burnout, the potential mental health missteps, if you will, because you're choosing the reality of, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to work all the time. I'm going to respond to texts at 11, even though I've said when I first started, I'm not. I won't answer my phone after 6.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
Just those sort of things. So I think that's a big part of it. And it's just like really set yourself up for a strategy moving forward and be okay with being busy.
Yeah.
It's putting a plan in place.
Yeah. Yeah, so setting those realistic expectations, right? And I think one of the things we had a little bit of preamble earlier this morning. We were talking about this a little bit, and I think one of the things we identified was sort of that whole concept of the constant comparison that we do with other agents, maybe agents that are more experienced, or you're looking at them and you think they've got it all together because their social media looks so slick and and all of that, and then, well, why am I not, why isn't it working that way for me? And just, understanding that, the first years for sure, you really are answering all those calls. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, we did have a little bit of a preamble, so I feel like we're almost diving in halfway here, but the comparison culture that is really fostered, especially since, COVID and everything, and everyone was like, well, we can't be out doing open houses all the time. Mall kiosks might not be a thing anymore.
Right.
And so I think it was really, how do we reach a big audience? So you go to your social media, you start doing all the videos, you start doing all the content. There's lots of people making, or with the message of you need to be posting, however many times a day, blah, blah, and all this sort of stuff. So the actual level of content is vast. It comes at you nonstop.
Right.
And part of the business is connections. So you need to be dialed into your fellow agents or your clients or whatever. And so it's important to pay attention. But man, it can get really overwhelming. And the unfortunate thing with social media, just in general, is you're likely not seeing the whole story.
Yeah.
You're likely not really getting the picture behind, to keep it in real estate, behind someone saying, oh, I've got, 50 accepted offers in the last 2 months. Well, yeah, but if it's an accepted offer, until it's actually pending or closed, it's not real.
Right.
You don't actually know that that's going anywhere. It might collapse. They might have done 5 deals, but they've posted 50 accepted offers.
Right. Great
to be busy, but to understand that that's not necessarily real, proper, full transaction all the way through. It's a hard thing to juggle and to kind of get to that point where you can properly understand that doesn't necessarily give the full picture.
Yeah.
You're seeing a snippet of
that's so good
success.
Yeah. And it's tough to navigate that because if you're the type of agent that does that kind of advertising and whatnot. Like you have a very specific reason for why you're doing that. You're trying to drive more business to you. You look really busy. On the flip side of that, though, if you look too busy, people might not call you because, you know, you could be doing yourself a disservice by showing yourself as this really overwhelmingly busy person.
Yep.
But for the other side of that, for the agent that struggles with that, that doesn't necessarily want to do things that way, they're more, you know, a person-to-person connection kind of person, that weighs really heavy on them too. It's like, well, I feel like I'm falling short. Like, why, you know, it's not a realistic picture of what's actually happening.
For sure. And it's really hard in any sense to not get caught up in it.
Yeah.
And then you get into, again, we're in a business where, I mean, it is commission based.
Yeah.
Sales means you pay your mortgage, you pay, you know what I mean? Like
you buy groceries.
You buy groceries, right? So it's hard to not get caught up in it and seeing this narrative or this, you know, this kind of feed of success mixed with, well, I'm doing 3 deals.
Yeah.
And not realizing that maybe there isn't as much of a gap as you think there. And also, like, one of the ways to kind of sidestep that, or, you know, and I learned this a few years in, is to like really understand what your vision of success is.
Right.
It's not necessarily, not everyone wants to do 50, 60 deals.
Yeah.
That's an incredible amount of work.
It is.
You know, and, you know, so to have that vision of where your success is. I know people that would be more than happy doing 10, 12 deals a year. They have a great balance. They get to do what they like. It's an income that they're completely fine with and works for their life. That's success.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, you know, the G-Wagon and whatever else. Like, it just doesn't, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, and that's where we get caught is, and you, I mean, even nowadays, you see shows, you know, you know, my
Selling
listing.
Sunset
my average listing is $9 million. You're like, cool, you sold 1 in a year. And, you know, and it's just this facade. And it's not really necessarily in conjunction with what's success for you.
Right.
Once you can kind of have that grounded, I think it provides the ability for you to not get caught up as much into this comparison of someone else's business.
Yeah. So what's really important is establishing that early and saying, like, what do I want out of this?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to be that glamour, you know, and maybe you do, and maybe you do that and it's great.
Yep.
But realistically too, like, if I want to earn a living wage and have a life, you know, I can achieve that too. Right. And that's okay.
And the beautiful thing about this business is if you can establish that early, then you kind of do get to choose your adventure. You kind of do get to choose how your business unfolds. You know, if you have an ability to run a business where you're doing 10 or 12 deals or 15 or whatever it might be, and that provides you 4 or 5 months of the year to not be here and travel, and that's wealth for you and that's success, amazing.
Yeah.
There's not many businesses where you can really sink into that and really kind of mold it to what you like.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with also wanting to do 300 and do whatever, you know, and it's just being able to make that kind of decision earlier on so that you have that like pillar to work from.
Right.
I think,
yeah, that's good. What would you say are like some of the signs of burnout? Like, you know, you're rocking it, you're doing well, or maybe you're not, but you're really trying to hustle and you're not seeing the traction. You know, were there or are there sort of signs that you see?
I mean, I'll speak to the stuff that I noticed in myself. I think just mental health in general is going to manifest in many different ways for different people. For myself, it's usually the things I pick up on are missing the small stuff that you normally would do without even thinking about, or you wouldn't, you know, it's in your list and your tasks, and you just kind of rattle through them and you don't think anything much about it. It's almost muscle memory. You start to skip those. You start to miss them. The ones that weigh on me are like, you know, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. You're like, oh, wait, did I actually do that today? And you got to go back and check.
Right.
And then just being task to task. You're not finishing the one task because then another one pops up. You go to that and then you're like, oh man, and then before the end of the day comes around, you're like, you have 14 tasks. You needed to complete some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them maybe you didn't, but you've now taken a little nibble out of everything, and you haven't
Right.
really done anything.
I sometimes measure the amount of tabs that are open on my laptop. It's
That
like,
would be a horrible thing for me. But yes, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, there's 52 tabs open and,
Yeah.
none of it's done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they close and you're immediately like, I needed all of those, even though you haven't looked at one for 2 years or whatever it
Right.
might be. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a balance, because I think part of the business itself really does kind of foster the ability. You have to be able to juggle. You have to be able to keep multiple things moving at the same time.
Yeah.
But you also need to be able to figure a way to, it sounds weird, but be okay with a bunch of balls being in the air
Right.
and none of them necessarily coming down.
Right.
You got to be okay with kind of just having things in limbo a little bit.
Yeah.
Hard to get there, but
It's really hard
Yeah.
to get there because,
Yeah.
again, I think, this multi-million-dollar industry that says, like, you got to have it all put together. I think, wow, I've just seen so many great people kind of fall apart under the pressure,
Yeah.
including myself. I mean, I've had my own journey with, just burnout and
Yep.
and the cost of that. And I would say, along the same lines of those early signs of burnout, definitely that confusion, the forgetfulness, the sort of that overwhelming feeling of, oh shoot, did I get that done? Or did I call that client? And all of, well, what about this? And you're moving so quickly from thing to thing, and that turns into further stuff as you let that fester for too long. All of a sudden, that can turn into feelings of failure. I'm not achieving what I had hoped for, leaks into your relationships with, maybe your partner or your children or your friends, your family. And, depression's a very real thing. Substance abuse is a real thing. Like it can get, I'm moving on into the dark areas, but those are the realities of it. So early signs can keep you from, going to places that are going to be really harmful for you. So
For sure.
so that's it's tough. It's tough. And I think more people need to recognize it. I think sometimes I don't want to talk about that. I'll leave that over there.
Yeah.
But
It's
dangerous.
For sure. And in a way, it's one of the things I've also found in real estate is that there's a narrative, and I understand why, but there is a bit of a narrative of always things being on the positive. There's always the positive side to it. And a lot of the times we don't kind of embrace the fact that maybe it kind of sucks right now.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We were like, oh, the market's hot. The market's hot.
Sometimes it's not.
It's not.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And if you're going to work in this business, being understanding of, obviously on corporate levels or, an outward exposure, if that's kind of your advertising, that's your marketing and everything, is to be on the up, to be always busy and all this stuff. I get it. I don't fault anyone for it. But then to be able to have people in place, have some support networks, have some strategies, that kind of thing on the backside, to be able to understand that, like, there are going to be times in this business where it is slow.
Yeah.
And you have to, one, hopefully be prepared, and then two, have that network where you're able to, like, kind of lean back a sec, have someone kind of prop you up and be like, no, you're doing what you're supposed to. These are the right moves. Yes, it's slow. You may not be doing the transactions you want. It might, et cetera, but you're making the right moves. And if you stick to this, it does come back.
Yeah.
It does come back. You're doing the right things for your business, for yourself, all that sort of thing. But it's important because it's hard to not get caught up in the market's crazy. We're doing this and and the reality is sometimes that's what everyone's seeing outwardly, but inwardly, you look at the data and you're like, it's quiet.
Yeah.
There are lots of people in a market, like even right now, that are really struggling to continue their business.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. We're filming this in the summer of 2025. Maybe you're watching this a year from now. Maybe the market's different at that point. But, but the fact is that the market really drives a lot of the pressure that we feel.
Yep.
And so, chances are in a lot of cases, I'm not going to say in every case because this could be controversial, but those agents that are particularly, putting social feed out there that's like, oh, so busy, like, writing contracts, blah, 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 blah. They might actually not be, but that's their way of trying to, make it look like,
For
call
sure.
me because like I'm busy
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, for sure.
because we have to do what we have to do to try to generate that business,
And
right?
that's just it. Everyone's going to have their own strategy,
Yeah.
their own kind of take on it. And granted, there are agents right now that are thriving.
Yes.
There are absolutely people out there that are doing incredible business. They're breaking all their goals. They're doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
That is a fact. There are a lot of agents on the other side of that. And especially if you're new, you don't have this big clientele base
Yeah.
built, and you're coming into a market where we've got higher interest rates, we're seeing higher levels of inventory, we're seeing less people being able to sell because maybe financially it doesn't make sense to sell. They have to wait it out. There are a lot of factors that come into play. And so, I don't fault anyone for any strategy.
Yeah.
It's your own business. You do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that, whatever or whatsoever. But it's the back end of it where if that continues pervasively, it's really hard if you're not doing business to not immediately kind of go back on yourself and be like, well, what am I doing wrong?
Yes.
How am I not achieving this? How am
Yeah.
I not doing this? And it can unfortunately get pretty dark pretty quick.
Yeah.
Especially since your mortgage and your food bill and,
Yeah.
and all these
Yeah.
things are kind of lingering there because you only had maybe 3 months set aside and now you're on month 3. And I mean, in real estate, you work on 3-month cycles. Just because you get a deal in place, you're not getting paid for 3 months,
Right.
or 4 months, or whatever it might be.
Right. Or
You get,
longer sometimes.
yeah, you get the odd one where it might be a slam dunk and it's
Right.
4 weeks, and you're like, amazing.
Yeah.
But those are the exceptions.
Yeah. Those are the unicorns.
Yeah, right. And so it's to really kind of get yourself balanced and realize that it's not this glamorous, always turning thing.
Yeah.
You got to be aware that sometimes it takes a minute.
Yeah.
And you need to be okay to have that support network.
Yeah.
And, with any version of mental health, to be willing to lean into it,
Yes.
to ask for help,
Yeah.
to say you're struggling, to really lean in and say like, hey man, I'm dark right now.
Yeah.
I'm spinning out. I need someone to kind of step
Some
up here.
accountability there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important. And whether that's a colleague, someone that you trust within the industry, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's your pastor. Like, there are lots of options out
sure.
there
Yep.
that you can definitely have someone come alongside.
Yep.
I think too, we tend to compare in everything in life, not just real estate. We compare our homes, we compare our cars. There's so many, it's so silly, really. But I also think agent to agent, we compare our social feeds, our, again, the type of car we drive, the type of friends we keep, there's so much like social status to it. And I want to encourage people to just be like, don't let that drive the decisions you're making for your business. Because at the heart of this is your business.
Yeah.
And so, I hear people say sometimes things like, well, my friend who's in real estate, she's doing so well. And, she has all these whatever, and I just like stay in your lane. Like you work on you.
For sure. And and real estate being, local, it's an interesting thing too, because certainly in Victoria, a lot of your business comes from your circle, who you know. And so as you're saying, I have a friend in real estate, they're so busy.
Yeah.
Well, you don't actually know where that business is coming from.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between working a cold lead that just happens to come in because you pay for ads or whatever it might be, or the fact that your uncle is a developer. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
The outward look is, oh man, this person's so busy. They're doing all the business. They've got 60 new listings. Well, yeah, you got them. Not saying you're not a good agent,
Yeah.
but you got them.
You had some help.
It's your uncle. You know what I mean? Like, and so sometimes that is where business comes from for anyone.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's that, it's like you say, you get stuck in this comparison of
and
what
you
someone
can't
else,
do
and you
that.
just can't.
No.
You just can't. You have to be able to be like, this is what I'm doing. These are the pieces I'm putting in place. and just keep moving forward on your plan, on your strategy.
Yeah, so good. When I first got into real estate many, many, many moons ago, there was usually you kind of come out of the program with 5 or 6 other agents that you kind of connected with during the course. And we kind of all ended up at the same brokerage. And there, I would say now, like decades later, there's maybe 2 of us from the group that are actually still licensed. So there's a big turnover, I think, because people do tend to realize, like, actually, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be.
For sure.
But of the grouping, there was one that she just crushed it right out of the gate. Like, for the rest of us, we were like, really struggling, eating ramen and, why is it so easy for her and not for us? And, we started to realize, okay, she actually had a really good initial sphere of people and she crushed it for a couple of years. And then when that dried up, she had not done enough planning after that. And so when we started getting busy, she now was like, I don't know where I'm getting my business from because she hadn't set it up properly. She kind of, sold to her sphere and then that was it. And then she eventually got out of the business. And so it's, a lot of times I think, real estate it's the long game. It's really, working out your systems and the way that you're going to connect with people, less about social feed and all of these things and more about the person to person. That's the longevity in this career, right?
For sure. And I mean, I can relate a lot to the person you're talking about. I mean,
we all know one of those.
Well, and I mean, even like myself, like I got licensed right before COVID lockdown. I think it was 2 weeks before I got my license comes through, and all of a sudden it was like, well, I mean, world's over. Enjoy. And you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Great time for a job career
perfect.
change.
Love it. Great job transition. But what was interesting is my first deals, once everything kind of opened back up again, came from my sphere. Just as I would say most people, that's where your first kind of business is going to come from. But what was interesting is I didn't really realize that I had fostered or kind of farmed these people along my journey of getting licensed. I didn't even realize that these were people that, were regulars, that I either had friends from past experiences, past interests, whatever it might be, regulars that would come into the bars or the pubs, that kind of a thing where I was working. And naturally you just kind of dive into what's going on in life and that sort of thing. And it took me a bit to kind of click into the fact that a lot of these people that I was doing work for and working for we had started the process a year and a half before, and it wasn't even it just completely organic. It never even crossed my mind that that's what was going to happen. And yet this is where it comes from. And so, I mean, you do have to sometimes think like, it's great to get these quick hits and that sort of stuff, but really it is that process of, you're laying the groundwork now for business a year from now or 2 years from now, whatever it may be. It takes time. It takes time. And so if you are in that process of building it, you have to remember and kind of keep front of your mind that like this equals something in the long run.
Yeah. If you know that old Kevin Costner movie, if you build it, they will come. Yeah. It's that long game.
Yeah,
for
everybody needs a baseball field and a cornfield.
Yeah, definitely.
Why not? Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so we're talking about mental health. Another piece, there's layers to this for sure. And another piece to this is navigating the emotions and the stresses of your actual clients. So we've been talking about like the comparison, sort of the agent to agent relationships. But we also, as agents, we have to navigate the mental health and the emotional stresses and the factors that affect sellers and buyers through the process, because it is such a stressful situation, right? Sure. And so how do you do that effectively while still protecting your own, boundaries and mental health and, how do you do that?
The best you can.
Yeah.
No, I think a really big factor for that, at least again for myself, is you need to become a better listener than a talker. You really need to be able to sit down, listen, empathize, try and understand where they're coming from. It can happen in the business, I find at least, where you sometimes lose perspective. You're selling a property, they're selling their home.
Yeah.
There's a big shift there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think being able to like kind of foster that ability to like listen, actually understand why the circumstances around why they're selling, that kind of a thing can really help you to relate. And once you get to that kind of a level and that kind of a relationship, I think it makes it a lot easier to separate, because yeah, it's still your job, but you're there to really try to facilitate this next chapter, this next move for them. And then I hate to say it, but honestly, I think some of it's time.
Right.
You get better at it the more you do it.
Yeah.
You get better at being able to empathize and listen and try and understand where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, you also know that when you go home, like you may feel for them, but you need to be able to focus on your own thing. And being able to create that separation, I think sometimes just takes some time.
I agree. And that is really hard because, you know, every situation with a client is different. You could have a great situation where they're just excited, they're, you know, moving on to the next place, their family's growing. That's like the greatest thing.
Yeah.
But you may have a situation where it's an elderly couple, the husband's just passed away, and now you're navigating, you know, this new chapter for the widow, and this is all she's ever known, and she doesn't even know how to pay her bills now, and like and it's really hard. Or you could have a divorce or separation situation where, you know, there's maybe young kids in the mix of it all, and that can be highly emotional. You could have someone that's losing their house because they can't afford to live there anymore. And the financial stresses that are involved are just weighing on them. Or they've lost a job, or, you know, so many things can factor in. And I love what you say about trying to find that separation between like putting on your work hat and going to work and really being empathetic and sympathizing with their issues, but not bringing it home with you and letting it bleed into your personal life. That can be really hard to deal.
Yeah, I think that might. I mean, there's lots of things about the business that are hard, but I think that might be one of the more difficult kind of things to really grow as a professional in this business, is the ability to separate the two. Again, I think a lot of it really comes down to time. And I mean, certainly I know early on I had a transaction or two that were pretty emotional, not the greatest scenarios for buyers or sellers or whatever it may have been. You know, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's stuff that you may not have experienced before in business, or maybe you've never experienced dealing with people that are going through that scenario in life.
Yeah.
And then you add a business aspect to it as well. So it just is a difficult scenario.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think giving yourself a bit of grace for trying to learn how to navigate those scenarios is really important.
Yeah.
You aren't going to know everything out of the gate. You aren't going to know that maybe it's okay to let that phone call at 11 o'clock go to your answering machine.
Yeah.
Because by the morning, they've likely talked to someone else that's probably more likely, you know, a good friend or a relative or whatever it might be. Sometimes that is okay.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes it's probably what's best for you.
Right.
In your mental health and your business and whatever else, to just be like, let's let it sit. I can talk to them in the morning. If it's still happening, then, you know, again, like you said, kind of put on that hat and say, okay, let's get to work.
Yeah.
But that takes time.
It does.
It takes time. And like I said, I know early on I had a couple where it probably was pushed a little too far.
Right.
And, you know, you just, you make a mental note, or you know, you kind of take stock of it and go, okay, that's one I need to improve on next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully, I mean, just if people are listening to this podcast, hopefully they'll be like, oh yeah, like that's actually, you know, we're raising awareness so that people maybe won't have to necessarily experience it the same way.
Sure.
So it's good to be able to do that. Yeah. You know, I think the lines can get blurred there between professionalism and relationship at some point with the client, right? It's like you you are invested because of their situation and whatever that might be. And then you may end up saying things that you regret later, like, well, I'll always be here for you.
Totally.
Or,
Yep.
call me whenever you need. I'm here to
Yep.
help you. And then when the call comes
then
at
they do.
11 and you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And, and so those lines become blurred. And so, I think just keeping it professional as best you can, with still sympathizing with them and being their support, but so that they understand that there is still a professional line there in the sand, that I'm not going to cross over and carry your burden for you. I have enough of my own burden to carry, right? It's so important.
And it is a unique aspect to this business, because I'm friends with clients, and so
Sometimes
to
that's
hold
the hardest.
totally
It's when
and
it's friends.
it's close second to when you want to be friends and they don't. But it is a hard line to keep, where, because the personal aspect of this business really runs through everything.
Yeah.
And so whether or not you're holding those boundaries or not, oftentimes you will build a relatively robust relationship.
Yeah.
Sometimes not. Sometimes it is very transactional.
dry.
They want to do this, you do
Yeah.
this, and it just works out, and everyone, that's great.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it does kind of really weave between this like business and personal relationship. And I
What
think
do you do if that client, they weren't friends, like you just like if someone that you picked up, and they Facebook friend request you?
Yeah.
Do you say yes to that?
Well, it depends on which account, I guess. We've got the professional business account.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Everyone in the
Okay,
world
but
can be
they
my
went
friend if they want.
They went to your personal one.
Yeah. I think that's really discretion.
It is.
It's just discretion.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that, we kind of touched on early with like those soft skills of like, how do you read the relationship? How are you reading this person in relationship to you outside of work?
Right.
Is this someone that, actually could maybe be a great friend, and someone that, you later on, 20 years from now, you're like, oh yeah, we met because I sold them their first condo, or I sold their house, or whatever it may be. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it really comes down to learning how to read that and trusting your gut.
Yes.
There are definitely going to be
That
times.
is so good.
Yeah, where it's, you're like, yeah, this person's really nice, but
something
maybe
tells
not.
me.
Yeah, just, maybe I'll pump the brakes on this a second. I think it's just really important. I think in general, and in a business like this, trusting your gut when something feels a little off is really important.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't necessarily mean you're right about it, but give it a pause.
Right.
Give it that second
Pump the brakes
to
for a second. Yeah.
take
I love
a little
that.
take a little dive and see why'd you feel like that?
Yeah. I think that's such good advice. It's such a cliche thing to say, to trust your gut, but it's
Totally.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. So along those lines too, with clients, with your mental health, you're navigating their emotions and feelings, but you're also having to navigate your own, because again, we talked about the struggle that comes with commission-based sales,
100%.
and like some of the months are a little leaner than others.
Yep.
And making sure that you are presenting yourself 100%, even when you feel like phoning it in.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you are like, I need this commission check so bad because I've got to pay these bills next month and I've got to make this sale, making sure that attitude is not bleeding its way into the conversations that you're having with your client.
It's funny. I know early on when I started, that was one of the things that I was lucky enough. In our office, I think we've got an amazing amount of agents that are excellent and willing to help and support and all that, and willing to give advice if asked and that sort of stuff. So I was really lucky with that. And it's, everyone says, oh, don't get commission breath. Don't get commission. It's easy to see it. It's, everyone can tell. It is hard to not when you get to that point. I think the key is to try and kind of put yourself in the scenario on the other side. Mm-hmm. Am I going to give this advice to myself if I was the buyer or the seller? Am I going to make the same move I'm thinking about suggesting right now? Or am I saying these things or thinking these things because, man, I really need this to go through?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, almost everyone's going to come up with the right answer.
Yeah.
You know, that's just part of the business. That is part of the mental load
Yeah.
you take on in this business, is the fact that, yeah, it's commission based. So there are times where you need to say or do something for your business, for your client, that means you don't get paid.
Yeah.
That they don't sell, that they don't buy.
Yes.
You know, I mean, in the last couple of years, especially as the market has shifted, we've seen interest rates go up and stuff.
Yes.
I've told multiple clients that I don't think this is the right time to sell. And yet you can have that conversation and they can still say they want to.
Right.
But as long as you're advising to the best of your ability, to the best of what you're seeing in your data, your research, all this stuff, it's just important to put that out there, to say the hard thing, to have that hard talk, and just go from there. And at the end of the day, we work for our client. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it's a big thing, is you just have to be able to make that conversation happen.
Yeah. The word integrity comes to mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I know I have bills to pay. I know I need this money, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to push these people and force them to do something that ethically isn't right.
For sure.
Like,
and the funny thing is, I mean, that's a balance in itself, because one, if you want to look at it as a business sense, telling or advising your client to do something that you know is not the right thing to do is a really quick way to just absolutely destroy your business.
destroy your business. Yeah.
If we're talking long-term clientele based and you're saying stuff like that, it's, you know, that is, you're taking away the foundation.
Yeah.
The flip side is, the integrity side of it is, you also know that you're not, like, that's not the right advice.
Yeah.
You really look deep and you give yourself a second, you're like, no, that's not the right advice. I personally think that there aren't many agents out there that would be willing to give poor advice to make sure they get paid. I don't think that's the case. It's just the nature of the business.
But I would say that the consumer, the general public, would say otherwise.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I feel like, you know, there is a certain stigma around, you know, realtors, you know, and maybe there are the few bad apples, or maybe there's some shows on the TV that, you know, suggest otherwise.
Yep.
And so fighting against that, I think, you know, to indicate, and I agree that you're right. You know, we are certainly very lucky here in Victoria to have a huge net of incredible agents that do, you know, work with a high level of integrity. But I would say that the general public thinks maybe a little bit otherwise, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's sales is, it's just what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
You know, I mean, and I mean, I'll be honest, you come into the business before you're working in this and you think sales and you're like, oh man, I don't know, they're going to push the hard sale, and like everyone's been to, you know, any area where the person won't leave you alone or whatever it might be. You know, it is what it is in that sense. So to break that, I think it really goes back to some of the stuff we're talking about. We're like, this is a relationship business. Yes, you're there to provide advice, to facilitate and all that sort of stuff, but you build that relationship and you build the trust through that process of really being able to like, yes, do we want to sell your house? Absolutely. You want to sell it. You've told me you want to sell it. I like my job. I want to get paid. It makes sense. I am also the person that is going to be able to be like, hey, like, we need to think about this, or maybe this isn't the right step right now. But that just, you know, that's the integrity part. That's the part where you're like, this is where, and you know, that's how we break that stigma. Is by being someone with integrity, someone that really acts for your client the best you possibly can.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So managing the client's emotional needs, also managing your own emotional compass when you're dealing with them. Those are two big pieces of the process and really tie into the whole better mental health picture if we can sort of like realize those things and put them into check and, you know, identify that not only are you balancing your own emotional compass, you are also balancing their requirements and their, and their emotions as well.
Yeah.
Very tricky. I say sometimes, being a realtor, you are a salesperson, you are a counselor, a therapist.
Yep.
Sometimes you're a nurse if someone, gets hurt, or, there's so many hats literally that you wear.
Yep.
So that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I think too, being authentic with your clients, obviously in a professional manner, but once you've kind of built that relationship, like, it's okay if you're not 100% all the time.
Yeah.
You can't always be at that level. You can't always be operating where, everything's pressed and steamed and everything's ready.
The market's hot.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's just it. Like, some days the market in my brain is not that hot. I don't know. Like, it's just part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but being able to be authentic in who you are and what's happening is really important. And I think that resonates to really foster that relationship in anything. Take business out of it. That's how you make friends. That's how you find those people that you're, that you resonate with, is being able to be who you are around them. Yeah. And then in business, you just add that aspect of, like, we do have our boundaries, we do have this, but it's not always going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, part of this equation too is there's an accountability piece, to all of it. And we talked a little bit about, like, finding a colleague or finding a therapist, or, finding people in your life that can help support you and that will see when you're feeling a little down, or, maybe you're looking a little out of focus. You've got your 52 tabs open on your laptop, and your colleague comes along and says, "Hey, are you doing okay?"
Yep.
There is an important piece there about checking in with people and being aligned. This is more on the brokerage side of things, but being aligned with a company or a brand that really supports good mental health. And one of the reasons why we're putting the spotlight on it right now is because we think it's an important topic. So having management and a brokerage behind you, this is like a little plug for Royal LePage, but it's important, right? To have managing brokers and a support system and admin team that are checking in with you if you haven't been around for a while. Like, hey, where are you at?
Yep.
So what are some simple ways that you could think of that a brokerage could foster a mentally healthier environment for their agents?
I mean, I think some of it would probably, it's kind of more of a request on the brokerage side, but I think it's likely picking out a few kind of more seasoned agents that have been in the business a while, have seen the ups and the downs, picking them out and just kind of saying, like, hey, are you willing to kind of check in? Are you willing to do, I don't know, once a month, just a meetup where you don't have to talk about business, you don't have to talk about anything.
Yeah.
You just come and, like, I don't know, what's on your chest? What's going on? I think things like that are important. I think having people in kind of your management level of the brokerage that do reach out and say, hey, I haven't seen you in the office.
Yeah.
You good? What's going on? Want to grab coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
Just that sort of a thing I think is really important. I think in general, a lot of it's going to be based on culture.
Yeah.
If you have a brokerage that has a culture of support, togetherness, and honestly just kind of believing in the importance of culture in general.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, a bit of a plug for Royal LePage if you want, but I mean, there's quite a few agents in our office that I've reached out to and just been like, hey man, how's it going?
Yeah.
And I've had agents that have said the same thing. We'll go and grab and just chat about family and kids and whatever else and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I think that's really important because real estate in itself it can be pretty transient. If you aren't on a team, you're solo.
You're alone. Yeah.
You're alone. And so, and a lot of the times when you're alone, you're going from, stop A to stop J in a day.
Yeah.
And it's all around, and I mean, podcasts and stuff are great, but that's not really someone that's going to listen. And, and so it's important to be able to find those people, in an office or in the brokerage when you get there that you can have a chat with and you can say, hey, let's go for a hike in the morning or, whatever it might be. But you really only are going to find that if the culture's in place to begin with.
Yeah, that's really a key factor.
yeah.
I love seeing, different people posting, they went on a walk together or a hike or,
Yeah.
they're showing pictures of them together having a coffee or a drink or
Yeah.
whatever. It's so nice to see. We do really have an incredible culture. That's a little plug. But and it's funny, one of my responsibilities is to do some of these check-ins and just to see how people are doing and, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? Haven't seen you around.
Yeah.
And the response that I often get is when we connect, they're like, I thought you were mad at me. I thought you were gonna, I was gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, because I think, the agents are like, oh, you're looking at my production. I'm not doing enough, and you're gonna fire me or whatever. And it's like, no, it really is just to check in and let's talk about, what you're doing and if we can do it better or differently.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so important because, I think if we just shove it under the rug and we don't actually talk about the things, then it's not healthy for anyone,
For sure,
and we're left just kind of going, well, I don't know where that person is,
Yeah.
so.
And I mean, on the mental health side of that stuff too, I mean, it's, if you push things into the closet, you stick them under the rug, that's where oftentimes you see things foster and spin.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have those reach outs. And it is tough because this business itself is very much not only competitive, but it really does go get it. What are you doing? What are your systems in place? Are you calling your CRMs? Are you know what I mean? Like, are you doing all this stuff? And sometimes what you really need is like, hey man, how's the family?
Yes.
What's going on? Like, I mean, obviously in any business, but in our brokerage, we've had, people that are having young kids and they check, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I've got 3 kids and I know that the first couple of weeks, months are wild.
Yeah.
And so just to be able to actually stop to someone and just be like, hey man, like, how is it?
Yeah.
And just, it doesn't always have to be, again, that like hustle.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, how are you as a person? The business beside itself, just how are you?
Yeah. I love that.
It's really
That's
important.
So good. It is so important. And it is one of the things you said about, you're on a team, but teams can feel lonely too, because really, the work that you're doing is really solo,
Yeah.
and, there's a lot of brokerages nowadays too that don't even have offices anymore. You're working from your car and you're not really talking to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anybody can understand an agent better than another agent.
Totally.
And so you could go home and talk to your spouse and be like, oh, this and this and this. But they're like, yeah, I don't really get it.
Yeah.
So having those relationships with other agents, I think is so important because it resonates with them. They understand the frustrations and the feelings that you're feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I encourage anybody from really anywhere, any brokerage, depending on it, whether you have a building or not, connect with people around you and talk about the frustrations that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because everything's valid. Like,
for sure. And depending on what you do, it's unique. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to relate someone that's in the same unique nature is very helpful. I mean, police officers, it'd be very hard for a police officer to come to me and be like, oh man, I went through this.
Yeah.
Pretty tough for me to relate to that.
Totally.
Or I've got friends on the fire department, that same sort of stuff. I mean, they are going to go through things that other than listening and trying to be empathetic, not much I can really weigh in on. So to find those people that have that common thread is really important. And I think it's important in any business out there. But certainly in a business where you have a unique nature in itself. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I mean, it is, we are kind of out alone. It's fairly solo. It's one of the reasons that I have a team now because it's really nice to be able to have that check-in, whether it's something simple like business where you're like, hey, like I went and looked at this house. It seems wildly overpriced to me. and just having that person be like, look it up and kind of, oh yeah, you're right. That's
Yeah.
crazy. You're like, oh,
Just
thank
to
God.
sort of validate the
yeah,
way
totally.
you
You're like,
feel.
oh man, okay,
Yeah.
good. I thought it was just me that
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
out to lunch. Like,
Yeah.
cause you have those moments
Totally.
where or vice versa. You're like, this is a screaming deal. Why is this not sold?
Right.
And then to have someone be like, yeah, that really is a great deal.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like get that validation and be like, okay, I am on the right page
Yeah.
here. But it's just, it's so unique that I think it's really important that you find those people. And like you said, it doesn't have to be same brokerage, could be
Yeah, it
whatever.
can be anyone.
I've got a few agents that I talk to in different brokerages that, I see their name on the phone and they've given me a shout. And I'm like, oh, awesome. It's going to be a great 15, 20-minute conversation, just checking in on family and whatever else and seeing how things are. And, it does really help to alleviate that weight sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd go one step further too and say, if as you're building your business, build this into your business model that you have key people in your life that are in the industry that you can. I have people in my own life. So my job is slightly different than the regular agent, but as a manager, I have key people from other brokerages in other provinces that I talk to and just be like, hey, are you seeing this trend or are you, I think local people are important, but also build on that and start getting to know agents in other provinces because then you're building out your referral network as well, which is important. That's a whole other conversation. But you get to hear from agents in other provinces and their markets. What are your pain points right now? And how are you dealing with those? And it's not so close then, because I think sometimes we do struggle as well with I don't want to give too much information to someone else locally because, we're both vying for the same thing.
Yeah, it's all a piece of pie.
But if you've got, people that you can talk to in other provinces where it's not necessarily you're competing against them, you're going to hear maybe some similarities. They're going to make you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not going crazy. This is actually happening across the world or across the country or whatever. So that's kind of a good point too, is just broaden that base a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that too, again, it's that validation.
Yeah.
We
need it.
Yeah. Just to be like, oh, hey, I'm talking to someone in Saskatchewan and that market's flying.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy crap, that's amazing. And you get a bit of that oh, okay, good. They're like, there is business. There are things that are moving and transacting, which helps kind of bolster the whole oh, okay, things are moving. It's a matter of time or whatever it might be. But then, getting the validation of okay, I'm struggling in Victoria or BC or wherever you are here, and I talk to an agent in Toronto. And you're like, oh man, it's tough out there too.
It's actually worse.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, totally,
right? And then you walk away feeling like, oh, okay, I don't have it so bad.
Man, I'm glad I could lift their spirits. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that because actually you're going to be doing good for someone else in the process because it's not all about you, right? I mean, the whole, one of the things you said right in the beginning too was just checking in with people and saying, hey, how's it going? And you don't know the impact that you'll have on somebody that you're reaching out to and you're hoping to get something from it, but they're getting something from it too.
100%.
That's so good. It's so good for your own mental health too.
For sure.
To know that you've helped somebody.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. Awesome. Okay, so we've had a really good. We're going long, and that's okay. I think this is such an important conversation. But small steps to better mental well-being. What's one thing an agent could do today to take a small step in the right direction? I feel like we've given lots of
probably.
things,
but I think, if you were to really kind of try and pinpoint a couple small things. Find fractions of time, find moments where it's really not necessarily for you, but find times where you can kind of ground yourself a little bit and realize, practice a bit of gratitude. If you're in the same boat that, we got kids and whatever else, like first cup of coffee in the morning, and it's a little bit quiet still, have a moment. Realize that, what you've got is likely pretty incredible, and find those small moments and try and appreciate them and kind of sink into the quiet of it. I think putting some strategies in place of things like saying, You know, and I mean, I know a lot of coaches are, oh, you know, you write your gratitudes in the morning and
Yeah.
journal and all that. And then like, amazing, amazing stuff.
Yep.
Reality is, I don't know how many people are actually going to bang out,
Yeah.
15 minutes of journaling every morning with a
Right.
cold plunge with 400 push-ups and whatever else. Like, life gets crazy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, I missed my push-ups this morning. Shoot. But life gets crazy.
Yes.
It gets to a point where sometimes finding that needs to be shrunken down to a 5-minute, cup of coffee
Yeah.
where it's still quiet. The kids aren't up or whatever it might be. And you can just take a second, take a breath, have a little gratitude, just even if it's just in your brain.
Yeah.
And just say that something to yourself and be like, yeah, no, this is pretty great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a good day, it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
I think also putting, something on paper, this is what I'm going to do. This is, having a task list. I like lists, so I try and make a list the night before I go to bed. So when I wake up, it's a little bit less on my shoulders and that sort of thing. And you can be like, oh, okay, I need to do this, this, and this today.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. It just kind of clears that path a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah.
And then I think a big one really is finding those people that we
Yeah.
were just kind of saying, where you can just check in, and something as simple as like, I don't know, like you said, go for a walk.
Yeah.
I don't know, grab a beer after work. Or there's lots of times in this business where you are going to be running around, and in between showings or whatever it may be, you got an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Grab a lunch with someone.
Yeah.
If you've got the means to do it, grab a lunch. Just have a chat. Sit down and be able to kind of express that. I think those are really important things. To being able to kind of help alleviate, and small steps you can to like really kind of relieve the pressure a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think along those lines too, I heard a story many years ago, and it came from a real life experience that was really horrific. And I won't share the contents because it is very horrific, but it was a police detective who was in the midst of a very difficult, very gruesome, homicide type situation. And he had a young family. And I have taken this into my own life because I find it to be so powerful. But he would go to the crime scene every day and deal with this horrific crime. And then he'd have to go home to his family and remove all of that from his head and check in and be present. And I'm not saying that real estate is a horrific crime scene, but
Sure.
it can
Yep.
be hard.
Yep. Yep.
And what he would do was he had a coin in his pocket, and when he would get home, he would pull into the driveway. He would take a couple rounds of breath and walk in the door and take the coin out of his pocket and put it with his keys and his wallet.
Yep.
And then he would move on with his day.
Yep.
And he would leave it there with his keys and his wallet.
Yeah.
And then be present for his family into the evening, at the dinner table, whatever, for his wife. And then the next morning, he would get up, pick up the wallet and the keys, coin would go back in the pocket,
Yep.
and he went back
Yep.
to the crime scene. And for him, it was a way for him to just completely separate the two from
Yeah.
each other so that they didn't bleed.
Yeah.
And I think, I have done it in my own life. I have a symbol that, something small that I keep with me. And I put it with my key. I still, to this day, after I've heard this story, I put it with my keys in my wallet at the front door. And so when I get in the door, the day is behind me. I am dividing it.
Yeah.
And now I am present for my family, my friends, dinner, conversation, whatever it is. And then the next morning I pick it up and I go. And it has changed my life.
Interesting. Yeah.
It has changed my life.
Yeah.
So it can be something simple like that, a visual cue
Yep.
that separates and again, we talked about it at the beginning. It's hard to do in the beginning
Yep.
because you feel like you got to answer every call and do everything. And so that's why the people are an important part of that equation, and making sure you're connecting with people that are going to help you through the hard times. But I would encourage people to find a visual cue that helps you to compartmentalize these pieces of your life so that they don't, there's those gray areas aren't so gray.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't remember where I heard was early when I first started. And it's similar to that in the sense that, like, again, I can't remember where it was from, but I remember someone saying, like, pick a song.
Oh.
And so it's more so kind of getting ramped up for the day. But in my first couple of years, I picked a song that I would play once the kids were at school, dropped everyone off, and I'm like, okay, it is now, we're doing this. And I'd had like a theme song almost, if you will.
I love it.
And I would put it on every morning.
And you dance.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was usually hardcore rap, so it's a slightly different dance.
Okay.
But I'm of the age where that was like 90s rap was my thing. But it was like, it's wild. You'd turn it on and it would, like, you know, obviously would listen to it too loud and all that sort of stuff. But it was a pretty amazing shift that would just, you'd be able to kind of be like, oh, okay, like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's go time.
It's go time.
Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, and so kind of like getting, I didn't have anything to kind of shut it down, but nevertheless, like, I get what you're saying with that, like, that switch to be able to be like, oh, okay, that's there.
That's there.
I'm
It'll
good
be
now.
there tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm good now. Yeah. Interesting.
So good. Okay. Some quick fire questions for you. Okay. So the kind of like the first thing that comes to your mind. So what's, and we may have, this is for you personally now. So what's one non-negotiable boundary you've set for your mental health? You're like,
quick fire, hey? All right. I try and keep Sundays.
okay.
I try.
Yep.
I try. I think, again, this is not going to be a quick fire answer, but the reality of this business is sometimes there are not non-negotiables.
Yes.
There are things that are absolutely time pertinent, time sensitive.
Yep. That's fair.
It is what it is.
Yep.
But I try to keep Sundays to be family, that sort of a thing, as much as possible. Often I lead, that is kind of part of how we talk to our clients in the beginning, in the first meetings, is like, hey, we try and keep Sundays. If something is like, absolutely, we have to go see it, or there's a contract date or something like that.
That's
of
different.
course, that's different. That is part of this business. You're never going to avoid it.
No.
I would say I try and keep Sundays for myself.
Love it. What's a common myth about stress in real estate you'd like to bust?
That the schedule is flexible.
The schedule is flexible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's great. You can do anything you want.
Make your own hours.
Yeah, you can make your own hours.
Yeah.
Choose, just holiday whenever you want.
It's not true.
It's not
true.
No.
Also, not quick money. Like,
yeah.
I think people think, oh, I'm going to go. It's fairly easy to get your real estate license. It's getting harder, I think. But I'm going to get in and I'm going to make good money fast.
Yep.
That's a huge.
Yeah. I would say the gap between getting licensed and making money is harder than getting licensed.
Yeah, 100%.
It's,
yeah.
you know, and you're right. I mean, things are changing and, you know.
Yeah, it's getting harder. But
absolutely. And I think as we progress through different markets and whatever, we will see it get more and more difficult.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, once you're done that and you have your license, translating the license to making a business and making money, there's a big gap there.
Big gap.
And it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think being prepared for that, maybe, you know, saving some money up so that you've got a bit of a, you know, a cushion there while before you make that first commission.
For sure.
If managing, I love this. If managing your mental health was a home renovation, what room would you start with?
Great. I'm going to give the cheesiest answer possible that I can think of off the top of my head. And it's not a room, it's your foundation.
Oh.
You got to start at the bottom. If I could go back to when I first got licensed, I would put strategies in place with the understanding and knowledge that it takes a toll.
Yeah.
That it is a different world than getting paid every 2 weeks or on your whatever it might be. So yeah, I would go back and I would say you got to build that foundation and have it in place, even if you're not making money.
Yeah.
Because if you come out of the gate with that, the world's your oyster.
Oh, I love that.
You could build anything you want on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. My answer was slightly funnier because, and it falls in line with what you were talking about 90s rap, because there was a specific 90s rapper who you'll figure out once I say that, but he had a rap that talked about cleaning out his closet.
Nice. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, it'd probably be like cleaning out the closet. It's just managing mental health. And, you know, cleaning out the cobwebs and, you know, but it's funny. I love that. The foundation. That's truly, I mean, that's where if you don't build it on a solid foundation, it's going to fall over.
For sure. And and there's a gap there.
So good.
There's a gap. It's you get licensed and it's like get busy.
Yeah.
And that's everyone's mentality coming out of licensing. That's what you're told. So to have something there where you're like, okay, like, hey, like have these 3 things.
Yeah.
Man, you can build anything you want on that.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah.
Well, Nat, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah,
I
it's been
hope
fun.
it's been helpful for people. You know, it doesn't have to, you know, be super stressful. I think I hope that people have felt a level of like, okay, validation here. I do feel these things, but I can get through them. And really making a community for yourself is so important. Don't do this alone.
Yeah.
It's, you know, nothing was ever meant to be done alone. So, so that I think is a message that we've really tried to drive home. So, so thank you. It's been wonderful.
It's been my pleasure. It's been fun.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. We're going to have some information at the bottom of this podcast for you that's going to run alongside it. One of the things I want to focus for you right now too is if you need help, if you need to talk to somebody, there's no ever any shame in talking to someone and getting the help that you need. So whether you're an agent that's struggling, if you're just someone watching this because you're curious, you have resources available to you. You can talk to someone today if you are, you know, struggling with stress or burnout or any of those things. There'll be some links available for you alongside the podcast that you can reach out and connect with someone today. Please get the help that you need. There is no shame in doing so. So thank you for joining us again today. Thanks to Nat. His information is also alongside the podcast. Reach out to Nat if you want to talk to him about, you know, the business, any other business and how mental health affects it. But also he's a fantastic real estate agent and he has a fantastic team, the Porchlight Property Group, and they are available to help you at any time. So you've got a great resource here for many different things. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again here at the Red Chair Podcast. Take care and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.